Hi guys, I've got 5 pounds of jalapenos that I need to do something with, and there's nothing better than cowboy candy. And I'm just going to go ahead and apologize ahead of time for the 10 pounds that you're going to gain from eating jalapeno candy all summer long. It's that good, you guys. Believe me, if you do not want to gain that 10 pounds, stop watching right now. Don't even make this. I'm just kidding. Go ahead and make it. Okay, so I washed my jalapenos and I also cut off the tops. Now I'm going to run these through my food processor and I'm going to use the slicer. Normally I would cut these by hand, but since I don't have any gloves, I'm going to use my food processor because if you've ever cut bulk jalapenos before, it's super painful when it gets into your fingernails or into any type of open wound that you might have or might not know about. Ugh, it's the worst. There are lots of cowboy candy recipes online, and I've tried a few, but I could never find one that I really loved. So I did some tweaks and I changed up the recipe quite a bit in order to suit my liking, and that's why I added the fresh garlic and the brown sugar. It really made all the difference and made this even more addicting than it ever was before. Alrighty, my jalapenos are all sliced up, and I actually accidentally flipped the blade when I was dumping it during that process, so some of this is shredded up a little bit more than I like, but it's totally fine. Now I'm going to chop up some fresh garlic, and you're going to need at least 5 cloves. I like a lot of garlic in my cowboy candy, so I'm chopping up some extra, and I usually put about 8 cloves in mine, but that might be a little much for some of you guys. If you love garlic though, go ahead and put the 8 cloves in. Again, chop this up really fine. If you don't have fresh garlic or you just don't feel like chopping up garlic, you can use some garlic salt or garlic powder, and in that case you're going to use half a teaspoon. Now it's time to make our brine, and for that you're going to need 2 cups of apple cider vinegar and lots of sugar. You're going to put your vinegar into a large pot, and you're going to add 2 cups of packed brown sugar and 4 cups of white sugar. And I know it seems like a lot, but this is jalapeno candy. They're supposed to be a really nice, thick, crispy syrup. Give that a stir until the sugar has completely dissolved. Now we're going to add our spices, and I'm going to start off with the garlic, and again I'm putting about 8 cloves in mine. I highly recommend putting this many, but if you're not a fan of garlic, like I said earlier, just put 5 in there and that would be fine. Even with the 8 cloves in there, it's not overpowering at all. Next up, we're going to put some celery seed in there, and we're going to put a half a teaspoon in. Now a half a teaspoon of turmeric, and a whole teaspoon of pepper flakes or cayenne pepper flakes. Give it a good stir and bring it to a boil. Now that our syrup or brine, it's kind of both, is at a rolling boil, we're going to start adding the jalapenos. Now it's going to seem like this is too many jalapenos for this pot, but the jalapenos are going to cook down quite a bit, and I'm going to be able to fit all of this into this pot. You just want to make sure that you're submerging the jalapenos throughout this process, continually pushing them down, and also kind of rotating the jalapenos that are on the bottom and bringing them to the top so that all of them cook fairly evenly around the same time frame. Now I've got all my jalapenos fitted into the pot, and we're going to cook this down until all the jalapenos turn kind of like an army green. It's going to be almost translucent and a darker, muddier looking green. So now you can see the color is starting to turn, but there's still some bright green pieces left in there, so I'm going to wait until it's consistently that muddy green before I remove it from the heat. Meanwhile, I have my oven heated up at 225 degrees, and I've got my jars sterilizing inside. The jalapenos are ready, so it's time to pack them in the jars. Normally, I take the jars out of the oven one at a time as I use them, but since I'm going to be using a hot syrup in here, I'm going to go ahead and take them all out at once and pack them all at once. You really want to pack these jalapenos in there quite firmly, and you want to make sure you're not going any higher than that first ridge. So you want to leave about an inch of room from the rim. Also, I'm using salad tongs because I don't want any of the syrup in the jar just yet. Once we're done packing these, we're going to put that syrup back on the burner and bring it to a hard boil. I'm putting some extra jalapenos in a clean bowl aside because I want to make a relish. So I'm going to put this in my food processor and make a cowboy candy relish. And then we're going to put the pot back on the burner. Right, you want to bring this to a rolling boil because we're going to reduce the syrup just a little bit, and we're going to cook this for about 10 to 15 minutes. Now I'm taking the extra jalapenos and I'm going to mince this up in the food processor to make my cowboy candy relish. It's been about 12 minutes. It's time to fill our jars with the syrup. So before I fill the jars up, I'm going to take my little spatula and I'm going to scrape down the sides and make sure that all of my peppers are below that first ridge line. That's about an inch from the rim. I've gone ahead and popped in some extra jars for the relish in the oven, and I'll fill these ones up with the relish. Using my canning funnel and a ladle, I'm going to fill the jars up with the syrup, and I'm leaving about 1/4 of an inch head space from the rim of the jar. Now I'm taking my spatula and I'm just going to pack these down a little bit more to get any air that might be trapped in between the pieces of jalapeno. And if the liquid reduces from doing this, I'm just going to go back in and fill it up some more. Now we're ready to put the lids on, but before we do that, we need to check our rims for any chips and also wipe them down with a wet rag. It's important to use a moist rag because we are using a syrup and it can be really, really sticky, and we just want to make sure that this seals up nice and tight. It's time to put our lids on, and I always like to check the underside of my lids just to make sure there isn't any defects in the gum ring. And I keep these in the hot water until they're ready to go on the jars. Also, you're going to screw the rings on finger tight. That means you're not going to crank this really tight. You're just going to use your fingertips to tighten it as far as you can go with just your fingertips. I'm going to water bath these for 10 minutes. Depending on your altitude, you may have to add 5 minutes or more, so make sure you check that online. Also, you want to make sure that the water line is an inch past your lids. That means the volume needs to be at least a whole inch above your jar lids. I usually do about 2 to 3 inches, but sometimes I'm lazy and I just do the 1 inch. After 10 minutes, you're going to remove your jars from the water bath and you're going to set them on the counter to rest and cool for 24 hours. You can eat these right away, but they're going to be really spicy. If you wait a few weeks, they're going to mellow out quite a bit. With this recipe, I was able to make 15 half-pint jars. That's quite a bit, but I have no doubt that we'll be able to go through all of that within a year's time. You should wait to move these until they've sealed, and you'll know when they've sealed because the little dimple on the top will be inverted. You can eat cowboy candy on crackers with cheese, cream cheese, which is one of our favorites, or you can put it on your pizza, you can add it to sandwiches, hot dogs, hamburgers. It's good on just about anything, even your pancakes. So I hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let us know in the comments below if you do try it out. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Also, don't forget to check out our food preservation playlist because we're going to be adding a ton of canning videos to that playlist very soon. Ball has these awesome storage lids that I like to use for packing Garrett lunches or snacks, and I also use these in my pantry for storing dry goods and dehydrated goods in jars. So if you like these lids, I will make sure to link them below.